Number 10. Claire Boardman. 44-year-old Claire Boardman and her live-in boyfriend, 33-year-old Stuart Jones, initially got along with 29-year-old former beauty queen Chloe Douglas Riley when she moved in next door to their home in Cheshire, England in 2020. But the relationship between the two women quickly soured when Boardman discovered that Jones was cheating on her with Douglas Riley. She was even more outraged when Jones abruptly left her and moved in with the neighbor, and tensions further escalated when Boardman found out that they were expecting a baby together. Boardman lost control of her anger and repeatedly threatened the younger other woman over text message and from her yard. In one incident, she allegedly swung an axe at the pregnant victim and said she was going to kill her with it. On another occasion, Douglas Riley accused Boardman of trying to barge her into her house. Douglas Riley became so alarmed by Boardman's behavior that she was afraid in her own home, and she became especially terrified about what might happen when she was coming or going from the house. She also claimed that Boardman and Jones were never in a committed romantic relationship, although that fact remains debatable. Boardman pleaded guilty to harassment and took responsibility for her actions in court, saying that she felt used and hurt after opening her home up to Jones. She said she initially let him stay in her spare room because he needed a place to live, and that it evolved into a relationship. Her landlord had tried to evict her after finding out Jones was living there, and he suddenly left without ending their relationship directly, leaving it up to one of his friends to tell Boardman that it was over. Seeing Jones with her neighbor made Boardman feel like the new relationship was being rubbed in her face, and made her even angrier over receiving what one might call the Irish goodbye. She apologized for her actions and received a 2-year suspended sentence. Number 9. Michelle Mills. 31-year-old Michelle Mills was trying to regain custody of her children in 2012 when she got into a heated drunken argument with her 20-year-old boyfriend, Edward Miller, at their home in Leicestershire, England. The pair were seen canoodling just hours earlier at a bonfire, but Edward reportedly became outraged after discovering that Michelle had sent a text message to the father of one of her kids saying that she still loved him and wished that she had never let him go. During the argument, Michelle expressed her anger about Edward's marijuana use, which made it seem to her like he didn't care about her attempts to get her kids back. As the fight escalated to a boiling point, Michelle grabbed the biggest knife available and stabbed him 24 times in a fit of rage in the chest, back, and abdomen. She attacked him with such ferocity that the knife inflicted cut marks in some of Edward's bones, and the blade broke off from the handle. Michelle called emergency services, but it was too late to save Edward. She allegedly told police that she went mental and was arrested for murder. In court, the jury learned that Michelle was Edward's first real girlfriend and that the couple fought often. The defendant tried to depict herself as a mentally ill domestic violence victim, but she failed to convince the jury and was convicted of murder. While handing down a life sentence with a minimum of 15 years, the judge mentioned Michelle's alleged history of playing the victim card against past partners and her apparent lack of remorse for killing Edward, making it clear that he believed prison was exactly where she belonged. Number 8. Mary Frances Fletcher. While helping with a photo shoot of a high school football team in McLeod, California in 2016, 42-year-old Mary Frances Fletcher met some players that she ended up staying in contact with. One thing led to another, leading to the exchange of inappropriate photos and physical encounters between her and 3 young men. In early 2017, a report about Fletcher's alleged crimes landed on the desk of Siskiyou County District Attorney Kirk Andrus. She was arrested, and the case quickly made national news headlines before dragging its heels through court for the next 3 years. Finally, after numerous delays in the proceedings, Fletcher pleaded guilty in 2019. At her sentencing in mid-2020, her attorney brought up several of Fletcher's personal issues as possible mitigating factors, including her own status as a victim of abuse, a drinking problem, and the loss of her job around the time she committed the crimes. The prosecutor and Fletcher's probation officer urged the judge to sentence her to a year in jail. After weighing the seriousness of Fletcher's crimes against any displays of remorse or responsibility for her actions, including an apology letter she submitted to the court, the judge imposed a 6-month jail sentence. The punishment allowed her to get jail time credit for completing a rehab program, and she agreed to flash probation, which meant that she could immediately go to jail for violating the rules set forth by the court. Fletcher was also banned from having any contact with her victims. During the sentencing hearing, the judge reassured the public that the court had continuously strived to treat this situation as we would if the victims were female and the perpetrator was male. He also based his decision on his impression that the victims wanted the case to be over after already taking much longer than planned to reach a conclusion. Number 7. Sheila Labar. In early 2006, police in Epping, New Hampshire received a call from a concerned mother asking them to perform a welfare check on her 24-year-old son, Kenneth County, who had recently moved in with his girlfriend, 47-year-old Sheila Labar. The caller described her son as mentally challenged and was worried that his trusting nature had landed him in an unhealthy or even dangerous situation with the older woman, who he had met through a singles chat line. Police found Kenneth at Labar's remote, heavily secured farm. He told them that he wanted to be there and seemed genuinely sure of the decision. By then, law enforcement had gotten used to receiving calls about domestic problems at the farm, which Sheila had inherited 6 years earlier after the death of her wealthy older boyfriend. But there was nothing they could do to stop a seemingly able-minded adult from being there on their own free will, so the cops left. Just a few weeks later, the police were called to a local Walmart where Sheila was pushing Kenneth around in a wheelchair. His skin was ashen, there were cuts and bruises on his face and hands, and one of his hands was noticeably swollen. There were 2 gas cans in a basket attached to his wheelchair. Sheila cut off the officer's attempts to talk to Kenneth and claimed he had been injured in a car accident. The officers followed the pair out to the parking lot and watched as Kenneth tried to walk but had to be helped into Sheila's truck. Just days later, police discovered Kenneth's burnt partial skeletal remains during a welfare check at Sheila's farm. During the investigation that followed, detectives uncovered blood spatter evidence indicating that Sheila had killed another previous boyfriend, 35-year-old Michael Deloge, who hadn't been seen since 2005. Law enforcement also found human toe bones that didn't belong to either of the 2 men. Labar was charged with 2 counts of murder. She pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, and while she was clearly a deeply disturbed individual, the court found that she did not meet the criteria for being legally insane when she committed the murders. The jury convicted Labar of the charges, and she received a life sentence without parole, which she has failed to successfully appeal. Number 6. Sabrina Lemon. By the time Sabrina Lemon met her secret younger lover in 2012, she had grown unhappy in her marriage to Robert Lemon. The Lemons had married young and were now in their 30s with 2 children, and they had become swingers, but Sabrina was uncomfortable with their new lifestyle due to her Christian values. While working at a Costco store in San Bernardino County, California, she befriended Jonathan Hearn, a former firefighter in his early 20s. One thing led to another, and for the next 2 years they carried on an affair. Sabrina occasionally joked about killing Robert, but at some point Hearn realized she was serious about wanting him out of the picture. She didn't see divorce as an option because she would lose all the mutual friends she and Robert shared. It would ruin her image in the small community where she lived and would likely result in a stressful child custody battle. The illicit pair initially planned to poison Robert's banana pudding with arsenic, but they backed out due to their fears of getting caught by law enforcement. Sabrina called Robert up at work and told him to throw the pudding away because it tasted strange. In the meantime, she and Hearn brainstormed other ways to kill him. They settled on another plan, and in August 2014, Hearn gunned Robert down outside his workplace. It seemed like a burglary gone wrong at first, but police soon began to wonder if there was more to the story. While Sabrina relished in the role of grieving widow, detectives narrowed down their theory about what really happened. They wiretapped Sabrina's phone and recorded her making incriminating statements and collected other evidence pointing to her and Hearn as the top suspects. Hearn confessed during questioning and pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter in exchange for a 25-year sentence in exchange for his cooperation. Sabrina tried to put the blame entirely on Hearn, but was convicted of first-degree murder and received a life sentence. Number 5. Melissa Barger. When police in southern Indiana caught 26-year-old Matthew Pavlian trying to steal a gun from someone's home in 2014, they were curious to know what he planned to use it for. He broke down and admitted that his older married girlfriend, 38-year-old Melissa Barger, had recruited him to kill her husband of 22 years. According to the couple's alleged plan, Melissa would leave her house unlocked so Pavlian could sneak inside and shoot Lee Barger in what was supposed to look like a robbery gone wrong while she was out picnicking with her 3 kids. She was later accused of promising Pavlian a cut of the life insurance money and a share of the house. To minimize the inevitable punishment he faced for his role in the situation, Pavlian agreed to wear a wire and record his conversations with Melissa. Court papers claimed that he asked Melissa if she really wanted Lee dead and gone, to which she replied, "It's the only way I'm going to get away from him." She also reportedly told Pavlian that the 3 children she had with Lee would cry for a minute or two. Police arrested Barger during her shift at a local Waffle House restaurant and charged her with burglary and felony conspiracy to commit murder. Pavlian faced the same charges. Lee Barger and his family were blindsided when they learned about the affair between Melissa and Pavlian and the plot to take Lee's life. In an interview with local station WHAS 11, his aunt, Joyce Lockett, said that Melissa goes a little crazy every now and then, but nobody ever thought she'd ever do this. During one of her initial court hearings, Melissa reportedly screamed, "I want my husband," and "I love you" to Lee, whose lawyer remarked that Melissa had apparently loved Lee to death, or at least tried to. Number 4. Natalie Fraser. In December 2019, 52-year-old Natalie Fraser sold her house in Quebec and moved to Western Cuba to be with her 39-year-old lover, Lionel Leon Noviola. Just a month later, her family stopped being able to reach her and reported her missing. Police found Fraser's brutally murdered body near Varadero, a popular beach destination roughly 30 miles, 50 kilometers from where she was staying with Noviola in Matanzas. She had been stuffed into a suitcase, and it was evident to detectives that she had suffered during her final moments. Fraser's daughter Melanie told a Canadian radio station that her mother relocated to Cuba with almost nothing, with the plan to eventually marry Noviola, and that the couple seemed very much in love. The pair had reportedly been together for a year and a half before Fraser made the move. Her other daughter, Marie-Eve, told the newspaper La Presse that she doubted Noviola's authenticity. By all appearances, Fraser waited an appropriate amount of time before making the life-changing decision to leave her entire life behind and start anew, and it certainly isn't her fault that she got killed. But the tragedy could perhaps serve as a cautionary tale about how you never truly know someone until you live with them. Number 3. Diane Peebles. Diane Peebles was in her 50s when she befriended a man 33 years her junior during a vacation in Sri Lanka in 2011. While working as a housekeeper at her hotel, 21-year-old Priyanjana De Zoysa asked Diane for her contact information. They developed a friendship online after she returned to Scotland, and Diane believed it was strictly platonic, so she was caught off guard when Priyanjana mentioned the prospect of marriage during a phone conversation one day. She initially shrugged off the commentary, but realized during a return visit to Sri Lanka in 2012 that Priyanjana was serious when he mentioned making wedding plans. He said he was looking at photographers, cakes, and dresses, and Diane told him to slow his roll. After all, they barely knew each other. Priyanjana got upset at her reaction, and, lo and behold, the pair tied the knot in a shotgun wedding ceremony. During an interview with the BBC in 2018, Diane said that she had agreed to get engaged to Priyanjana and was under the impression that they had to formalize the process at a government building. It was only during the ceremony, when the official began reciting wedding vows, that she realized it was an actual wedding. She had never been married and didn't want to miss out on the opportunity, so she went along with it. Diane returned to Sri Lanka several times to visit over the next 3 years, before packing up and moving there permanently in 2016. To start their life together out on solid footing, she spent her life savings building a house and a van for her husband to start his business with. She also spent money on furniture, food, and other items for his family. But Priyanjana allegedly failed to make any money, sticking Diane with the tab for their living expenses. And to add insult to injury, He didn't always come home at night. While Diane was being bled dry, the lifestyle her money afforded made Priyanjana appear wealthy to others, which is what she believed led to his murder in 2017. After her husband was shot dead, Diane found out that he had married an 18-year-old woman a year earlier. She found herself broke and stranded in Sri Lanka for the next year and a half until friends chipped in their money to pay for her plane ticket back to Scotland. In 2018, she went public with her story in a bid to warn men and women about the dangers of romance scams. Her advice to anyone who might find themselves in her shoes is simply, don't do it, don't get involved. Number 2. Cher. It's hard to believe just by looking at her that the world-famous American singer Cher is 76 years old. She's aged rather gracefully during her 6 decades in the spotlight and could easily pass for a woman in her 50s, which is why it perhaps seemed alarming but not too weird when she began dating 36-year-old music executive and rapper Alexander A.E. Edwards in 2022. The couple met during Fashion Week in September 2022 and were subsequently seen hitting the town with the rapper Tyga on multiple occasions. It wasn't long before Cher and AE were seen holding hands, and by early 2023, there were rumors of an engagement ring. A source told People magazine that the couple weren't at the marriage stage quite yet, but that they were in love, exclusive, and committed to each other. During an appearance on the Kelly Clarkson show, shortly after going public with the relationship, Cher admitted that their 40-year age gap might look kind of ridiculous on paper. But she said that the pair get along great, that Edwards is fabulous, and that she doesn't give men qualities they don't deserve. Still, there are doubters who wonder if either or both parties are in a relationship for the wrong reasons. According to Radar Online, sources close to Cher have expressed concern about her lavish spending, which seemed like a major change from her typically cautious financial habits. While AE has worked with a number of big-name stars and has amassed a net worth of around $2 million, it's nothing compared to Cher's $360 million fortune, and her friends are starting to fear that she's being taken advantage of. One individual expressed fears that the septuagenarian is throwing her money away on AE's allegedly lavish lifestyle and claimed that Cher is letting her boyfriend pull all the strings. To further quote the source, it's all about what AE and what he wants. She's been sucked into his lifestyle of parties, late nights and drinking, and she's neglecting her friends, mainly because they're horrified over her behavior. At the end of the day, Cher is a grown adult and she can do what she wants regardless of how others may feel about her decisions. Do you think her friends need to back off, or that they're appropriate for expressing their concerns? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments below. Number 1. Diane Borshardt. While working as a teacher's aide at a Wisconsin high school in 1994, 45-year-old Diane Borshardt discovered that her husband Ruben was having an affair. Contentious divorce proceedings followed, but the soon-to-be exes continued living under the same roof as they fought over their house and other assets. In the meantime, Diane befriended 3 male students at the school where she worked and unloaded her personal problems on them. She convinced the impressionable young men that Ruben was abusive and offered them $20,000, a car, and her marriage and engagement rings in exchange for killing him. It took some convincing, but a student named Doug Vest eventually agreed to carry out the hit. He recruited the help of fellow high schooler Josh Yank and his dropout cousin Michael Maldonado. Just days after Diane was court-ordered to move out of the home she shared with Ruben, the trio entered the house and shot him dead while she was conveniently away on an overnight trip. As he lay dying, Ruben reportedly said to his son, "I can't believe she would do this to me." Police suspected Diane of somehow being involved in the murder, but lacked enough evidence to charge her for it until 6 months later, when one of her young recruits told a friend about their involvement. The friend went to the police, who brought in Doug Vest for questioning. He eventually caved and gave a full confession, along with the names of his accomplices. Diane Borshardt was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the earliest possible chance of freedom after 45 years. Joshua Yank pleaded guilty to second-degree intentional homicide and received an 18-year sentence in exchange for his testimony against the other defendants. Michael Maldonado, the alleged gunman, was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life with a minimum of 50 years, and Doug Vest received the same conviction and sentence with a minimum of 25 years. Thanks for watching. If you were in an age gap relationship that your family and friends vehemently disapproved of, would you take their feelings into consideration or unapologetically tell them to get over it at the risk of them cutting ties with you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.